There are moments in life when everything feels like it has fallen apart, dreams collapse, plans unravel, and who we thought we were no longer fits. It is in those moments, standing among the ruins, that we are faced with a choice. Will we stay buried beneath the weight of what broke us, or will we begin the slow, brave work of rebuilding ourselves? Rebuilding is not a straight path or a polished performance. It's messy, uncomfortable, and often uncertain. It demands that we sit with the pieces, no matter how sharp, and acknowledge the reality of our pain instead of rushing to cover it with a false smile. The truth is, courage is not found in pretending to be unbroken. It's found in choosing to face the brokenness and still say, "I will begin again." Brokenness is not the end, though it often feels like it when life shatters in ways we never expected, leaving us standing in the ruins of our own hopes and plans, wondering how we will ever rise again. The truth is, those moments of collapse carry within them the soil of transformation, because what breaks us can also strip away illusions, false strength, and the layers we no longer need, creating space for something more enduring to take root. It is in the silence after the storm, when everything seems lost, that we are invited to look inward and discover a deeper reservoir of courage and resilience we might never have touched otherwise. Pain may shake the foundation we once relied upon, but it also exposes the strength we didn't know was hidden beneath the surface, waiting for the chance to be unearthed. Brokenness reminds us that life is not a straight line of victories, but a winding path of falls and risings, and each fall carries with it a chance to rebuild differently, to choose authenticity over perfection, depth over appearances, meaning over mere survival. The shattered pieces of our lives are not wasted. They become the raw material for our reconstruction, each fragment carrying the lessons of struggle, humility, and endurance that can be woven into the architecture of a stronger self. Though the pain may whisper that we are finished, that we have nothing left to give, the very act of choosing to keep breathing, to keep stepping forward, is proof that brokenness has not destroyed us, but is in fact reshaping us. Strength built after breaking is not fragile or shallow. It is rooted in the knowledge of what it took to rise, the nights endured, the tears shed, the doubts faced, and the courage summoned when giving up seemed easier. In this way, what once looked like an ending becomes the beginning of something far more resilient, because the ground of brokenness is fertile with growth if we dare to plant ourselves there. To trust that even from ruins, beauty can emerge, and that the self rebuilt on such ground is not only stronger but truer, braver, and more deeply alive. To rebuild yourself means releasing what no longer serves you. You cannot create something new while clinging to the rubble of what used to be. It takes humility to let go, to accept that the old version of you is gone, and it takes faith to trust that something new, something wiser and stronger, can emerge in its place. Rebuilding is rarely about grand leaps. It's about small steps. It's showing up for yourself on the days when moving forward feels impossible. It's waking up and trying again, even when yesterday knocked you flat. And those little steps, repeated again and again, become the very bricks of a new foundation. Courage to sit in the mess means allowing ourselves to stop running from the discomfort and finally face the raw truth of what hurts. Because rebuilding cannot begin until we are willing to acknowledge the weight of our pain instead of hiding behind distractions or quick fixes that only delay the healing we need. It is tempting to cover the wounds with layers of denial or to busy ourselves with noise so we do not hear the ache. But true strength is found not in avoidance, but in the quiet, trembling act of staying present in the very place we wish most to escape. Sitting in the mess is not glamorous. It is often heavy, confusing, and lonely, yet it is also the birthplace of transformation. For when we allow ourselves to feel the grief, the anger, the shame, or the loss, we begin to loosen their grip over us. There are no shortcuts through this process. Every attempt to bypass pain only pushes it deeper, where it waits until it forces its way back into our lives, often louder and harsher than before. The courage to remain in the mess is the courage to tell ourselves the truth, that something broke, that it hurt, that it matters, and in doing so, we honor our own humanity rather than pretending to be invulnerable. This kind of honesty opens the door to healing because wounds that are ignored cannot mend, but wounds that are tended with compassion and patience can become the very marks of resilience. Rebuilding does not demand that we have everything figured out right away. It asks instead that we sit with what is real, that we allow the tears to come when they must, that we accept the uncertainty without rushing to force clarity, and that we trust healing will begin in the very act of not running. In those moments of stillness with our pain, we may discover small flickers of insight, a deeper self-awareness, and even unexpected gratitude for the strength that grows quietly beneath the suffering. It is in the willingness to stay in the messy middle, without disguises and without escape, that we gather the wisdom we need to rebuild, because facing the truth of our brokenness is what allows us to rise not as the person we once were, but as someone more grounded, more whole, and more prepared to carry the weight of life with courage and grace. But rebuilding isn't meant to be a solitary act. We often think strength means carrying everything alone, but true strength is found in allowing others to see us, to walk beside us, to remind us we are not defined by our ruins but by our rising. When we share our stories, we discover we are not the only ones who have fallen, and that connection becomes part of the mortar holding our new foundation together. Release what no longer serves you is an act of both courage and liberation, because as much as we long to step into a brighter future, we cannot build something lasting while our hands are still gripping the rubble of what has already crumbled, and yet letting go is often the hardest part of rebuilding. We cling to familiar patterns, old wounds, and identities we have outgrown, not because they nurture us, but because they feel safe in their familiarity, even if they quietly suffocate our growth. The truth is, carrying the weight of past mistakes, regrets, betrayals, or even versions of ourselves that no longer fit is like dragging stones into the foundation of a house we are trying to rebuild. Eventually, that house cannot stand. To release is not to forget or deny what happened, but to choose not to let those fragments dictate who we are becoming, to honor the lesson without keeping the debris. This process demands a deep honesty, a willingness to ask, what am I holding on to that no longer has a place in the life I want to create? Sometimes it is anger that poisons our joy. Sometimes it is fear that limits our steps. Sometimes it is the echo of old voices telling us we are not enough. Whatever it is, the cost of carrying it is too great. Releasing is not a single moment but a daily practice, because those pieces will try to call us back, and every day we must choose again to set them down, to loosen our grip on what is already gone. This choice creates space for new beliefs, new habits, and new beginnings to take root. It is in the clearing away of what no longer serves us that we rediscover lightness, clarity, and the freedom to rebuild with stronger materials, hope, trust, compassion, and vision. The architecture of the future cannot be built on resentment, on guilt, or on fear. It can only be raised on foundations of acceptance, forgiveness, and courage. To release is to believe that what lies ahead has more power to shape us than what lies behind, and that we are not defined by what we lost, but by what we are willing to embrace. And while letting go may feel like loss, it is in truth a reclamation of self, a return to who we were meant to be without the chains of the past binding our hands. Rebuilding requires emptying our arms so we can pick up the tools of growth, and the moment we dare to release what no longer serves us, we begin to feel the weight lift, the air clear, and the path open toward a future that reflects not the ruins of yesterday, but the strength and vision of who we are becoming. Rebuilding is not about creating a perfect life. It's about creating an authentic one. It's about becoming, not perfecting. It's learning to embrace the cracks and scars as evidence that you are still here, still fighting, still becoming more whole. The process of rebuilding will not erase your past, but it will transform the meaning of it. What once felt like an ending can become the beginning of something deeper, more grounded, and more real. Small steps, steady progress is the quiet truth of healing, because real change rarely arrives in grand gestures or sudden transformations, but is instead born in the daily choices that, though small, accumulate into something powerful and lasting. When we are broken or lost, it is natural to crave a dramatic turnaround, to wish for one moment that will wipe away the pain and rewrite our story. Yet life seldom works that way, and the pressure to achieve instant change often leaves us feeling even more defeated. True rebuilding happens in the ordinary rhythm of persistence, in waking up and choosing to try again, in taking one step forward even when the path feels endless, in practicing patience when impatience tempts us to give up. Healing is a series of small acts, getting out of bed when staying under the covers feels easier, reaching for kindness instead of bitterness, breathing through the moments of overwhelm rather than drowning in them. Each of these choices may seem insignificant in isolation, but together they begin to reshape us from the inside out, like drops of water slowly carving stone. Progress that grows slowly is progress that endures because it is built on practice, not illusion. It is rooted in the truth of who we are becoming rather than the pressure of who we think we must instantly be. It takes courage to honor small victories, to celebrate the step instead of shaming ourselves for not yet reaching the finish line. But it is in those small acknowledgments that momentum is created. Steady progress is not glamorous. It is repetitive, it requires discipline, it often goes unseen, but it builds a foundation stronger than anything sudden or fleeting ever could. There will be days when the steps feel so small that we question whether they matter, but those are the very days when they matter most, because consistency in the face of doubt is what eventually leads us forward. The power of small steps is that they teach us endurance, patience, and faith. They remind us that healing is not about rushing to erase our scars, but about learning to live fully with them as part of our strength. With time, the small choices compound into visible change, and we look back one day to realize that what once felt impossible has become part of who we are. The journey of steady progress may not bring the dramatic transformation we once imagined, but it brings something deeper, a quiet confidence, a sustainable strength, and a life rebuilt not on illusions of speed, but on the truth of steady, unwavering growth. The gift of connection is one of the most powerful forces in rebuilding ourselves, because while pain often convinces us to retreat, to isolate, to hide our wounds out of fear of judgment or rejection, healing deepens and strengthens when we allow others to witness our struggle and walk beside us in it. We are wired to believe that carrying our burdens alone is a sign of strength, yet true strength is revealed when we risk vulnerability, when we open the door and let someone see the mess we would rather keep hidden, and in doing so discover that we are not as alone as our pain would have us believe. Connection does not erase our suffering, but it softens its edges, reminding us that our story is not one of solitary endurance, but of shared humanity. To let others in is to say, I trust you enough to see my cracks. And in that trust, a bond is formed that holds us steady when we falter. The presence of someone who listens without trying to fix us, who simply stays when the weight feels unbearable, becomes a lifeline that steadies our steps toward healing. In moments of despair, another's compassion can remind us of our own worth when we cannot see it. Their encouragement can whisper strength into us when our own voice is too weary to speak, and their faith in our resilience can rekindle hope we thought was lost. The gift of connection is not only in receiving but also in giving, because when we allow our story to be heard, we give others permission to share theirs, creating a circle of healing where wounds are carried together rather than in isolation. Our scars, once hidden, can become bridges that allow others to feel less alone in their own struggles, and this exchange of truth and empathy becomes the mortar that binds us more strongly than before. To rebuild with connection is to acknowledge that healing is not only about personal growth, but about the bonds that hold us in our most fragile states and remind us of the unshakable truth that we belong. It is in these shared spaces of honesty and compassion that we find courage we did not know we had, because someone else believed in us, stood with us, and refused to let us fall unnoticed. The beauty of connection is that it transforms isolation into belonging, shame into acceptance, and fear into trust, weaving threads of resilience that are stronger than anything we could construct on our own. When we allow others to walk with us, our rebuilding becomes not just an individual act of survival, but a collective story of rising. And the walls we build are no longer fragile, but fortified by the love, support, and shared humanity that remind us we were never meant to heal alone. So when you find yourself standing in the rubble of what once was, remember this: brokenness is not the end. It is an invitation to rebuild, to rise, to write a new story with the strength you didn't know you carried. And the beauty of it all is this: you don't have to be ready, you just have to begin. Becoming, not perfecting, is the essence of rebuilding, because the journey of rising after loss, failure, or heartbreak is not about chasing flawlessness, but about embracing the raw, unpolished truth of who we are and allowing that truth to guide us into a fuller, more authentic life. Perfection is a trap that whispers we are never enough until every crack is hidden, every mistake erased, every weakness eliminated. But such a pursuit only leads to exhaustion and shame, because perfection is an illusion no one can hold. Becoming, however, is alive, expansive, and honest. It acknowledges that we are works in progress, that growth is not linear, and that wholeness comes not from erasing our scars, but from integrating them into our story with compassion. Rebuilding is not about crafting a flawless image, but about uncovering what is real: our resilience, our tenderness, our values, our capacity for love, and standing in that truth even when it feels messy or incomplete. To choose becoming is to accept that we will stumble, that we will carry both light and shadow, and that our worth is not diminished by imperfection, but deepened by it. It is to realize that the cracks in our armor are not failures to be concealed, but openings through which light, connection, and empathy can shine. The pursuit of perfection isolates us, demanding silence about our struggles and constant performance of strength, while the path of becoming invites vulnerability, courage, and honesty, allowing us to live in alignment with what matters most. In becoming, we give ourselves permission to evolve, to shed identities that no longer fit, to explore new possibilities, and to honor the small victories that mark our growth. This process is humbling because it reveals that we are not in control of everything, but it is also liberating because it frees us from the relentless burden of having to measure up to impossible standards. Becoming calls us to be rooted in authenticity, to show up as we are while still holding space for who we are becoming, and to find peace in knowing that unfinished does not mean unworthy. The power of rebuilding lies in this truth, that life is not asking us to be perfect, but to be present, to be real, to be brave enough to let go of who we think we should be in order to step into the wholeness of who we truly are. And when we honor the process of becoming, we not only heal ourselves, but also create a space where others feel permission to be real too, reminding the world that our humanity is not found in our perfection, but in the beauty of our imperfect, ever unfolding journey.